You ain't going, you just never know. No, you don't.
Whoa, that should come to our faces. Hold on a second there. All right, here we are.
Hey. Welcome back.
Welcome. And I realized I forgot to bring my headphones in here, so I'm gonna go headphoneless, otherwise known as topless.
Ooh.
I'm gonna go topless for this. At least for the beginning part here. If there's any kind of echoing, if the one listener watching or viewer, and I don't know, who knows if they're listening, viewer, listener. If you hear any audio issues, please let us know in the comments. But you've made it here.
Yes, this is our third chapter in the HG series, the Hidden Gem series, which has been really fun. And I wanted to say something about documentaries just at the top, because, you know, when I mentioned to our friend Wendy, who's a huge film lover, it sounds like crap, that we were doing a show about documentaries, and her reaction was, not interested, which I feel like documentaries, is kind of a typical reaction that people have. There seems to be a stigma about documentaries compared to narrative films. And I think people are almost thinking of like, oh yeah, like in third grade when we had to watch that boring film strip about the mating life of tree frogs or something. Like that's what is in people's heads a lot of times when they think about documentaries.
That's still in people's head. That just seems like an old like trope that I feel like we've moved past, but I guess some people haven't moved past it.
Yeah.
I'm not calling out any names or anything.
No, well, I mean, I don't mean to throw shade on anyone, but I just feel like when people think, oh, why should I watch a documentary when I can watch a narrative film? You know, there is still that. It's like work, you know, it's like work. And I don't understand why, because to me, documentary films can be so incredibly moving, you know, and a lot of them follow a similar like 3-act narrative structure, right?
For sure.
Yeah.
I mean, I think narrative films, I've worked much harder than in documentaries just to follow or to understand the 50 characters. I mean, lots of documentaries you don't have to, you just get absorbed in what's going on, the visuals and just learning about people's lives that are so different than your own. And those are the docs that I like the most, are ones that follow people or cultures that I've never experienced myself.
Yeah, and to me, you can put docs in almost two groups, and disagree if you want. The one group is something interesting happened 1 year ago or 100 years ago, and I'm going to make a movie about that. And if it's 100 years ago, I'm going to go back, I'm going to get archival footage, I'm going to use photographs, I'm going to interview people if I can that were involved, and you can make. I'll just throw, obviously, Ken Burns is the guy that does this the best, right? He's the man when it comes to these kind of documentaries. The other kind of documentary is much riskier. Something interesting is happening maybe right now, and I'm going to start shooting it, and we'll see what happens. And you can invest a lot of your time, you know, and energy interviewing people, getting all this footage, and then you go back into the editing room after and you're like, is there a story here? Maybe not, you know, and then all that time is wasted. And if there is, then you've got like gold. It's pretty magical. Like, are these people that I'm interviewing gonna come off interesting? You know, is there gonna be chemistry? And I'll just start with my first film, because it's in the second chapter, I believe, or the second group, which is The Painter and the Thief, which is on, bring that up there.
All right, I'll find your image there. Where is your image? Painter and the Thief. Oh, there it is.
Yeah. Oh,
and you're going for you're starting with the newest.
Yeah, I just recently, I saw this like literally a week ago. And it's one of the best films, period, of any genre that I've seen in a very long time. Just to stay in this image for a minute to describe it, we have the painter is on you're right. She's a Czech artist living in Norway, and her name is Barbara Kilsakova. And the thief is the gentleman on the left. And what happened was Barbara was having an exhibition of her paintings at a gallery in Norway, and the thief, whose name is Carl Bertel, broke into the gallery and stole 2 of her paintings. And she happened to go while the proceedings against him, this was all captured on surveillance footage. So they were able to catch the 2 guys pretty quickly. During the court date, she was curious, why would someone steal my painting? I mean, the painting was valued at $5,000, but who knows if you can really get that much for it trying to sell it. She's a pretty new artist. And so she ended up just striking up, starting a relationship with this guy. And I'll say relationship, I'll just let that be ambiguous to not give anything away, what kind of relationship it was. But you can see here, she ends up sketching him, painting him. And I think it takes place over maybe a year or so. And just to go back to us, it's one of those films where you forget that there has to be a camera in the room because it feels like a narrative film, and that these 2 are in a room together, and they're having a conversation. And I mean, I thought about it a lot. Like, it's so intimate, their conversations and their relationship. And how did that happen? You know, where's the camera? How did they get this footage? It's so amazing. I read a little bit about it, but they don't really talk about, you know, obviously it was something, this was, again, it was a chance, you know, the camera guy said, or the director, who is Benjamin Ree. Yeah.
The cinematographer as well.
I believe so. Yeah. I'm not sure. But yeah, I don't even know how he got involved so quickly. At the very onset, he was there, and his camera was there, and he was getting all the footage between them together separately. And you see their story go. And it's interesting. One is coming from a place of, I'm an artist, you know, I'm a thief, I'm a drug user, and how that changes over the course of time. Just really beautiful, really powerful, and highly recommend it.
Yeah, it reminded me of one I did not pick for this, mainly because I tried to narrow down, and the film that, what, you know, we were trying to say, like, hidden gems. This one, although it's a very small film in a lot of ways, I think it might have won the Academy Award. I'm talking about Honeyland, which follows they said the last, let's see, I wrote down the last, depicts, well, the last honey collector in that part of Europe, and she like has these hives that are hidden in the rocks, and she just collects, and she goes and sells the honey to the markets, and it's very just, you just follow her life for, I don't know, maybe a week or 2, probably a little longer, because then a family moves in next door and they have a bunch of kids, and the kids are interested in the honey process, and so but then the dad sees that there's a money potential, and so he does not really honor the sort of the way she's doing it in this old school way. He's like, well, why are you using these old school methods? But it's just amazing and unlike anything I'd ever seen. And yeah, and that I think, I know it was nominated for Best Foreign Film last year, and it was in Amazon Prime, but now you have to rent it for $2.99. But
yeah, I was looking at a curiosity, like the last 10 films that were nominated for Best Docs. I mean, it's great. Those films obviously get exposure, and those are the films that need exposure the most, because people don't go to the theater to see documentaries for the most part. So it's great that happens. Usually it's like the film that wins, people go, oh, I better go see that now. And that film will usually get a re-release right around after the Academy Awards come out to make use of that little push that they get in PR.
Well, one film that I think does encapsulate a lot of these films for me. When I saw them, plays a big role in the impact they had on me, and I'm going to show this. It's not The Painter and the Thief. Let's take that part down. Not that either. I am talking about, where is it here? The Cruise, 1998. This was actually the first, I guess, it probably wasn't the first ever documentary shot on mini DV, but that it was sort of famous for that it was shot on mini DV, and they made it black and white partly because the colors of mini DV looked so bad. And this is about Timothy Speed Levitch, who gave tours on the second deck of, I don't know what the name of the buses were. Do you remember? The tour buses, they'd go all around Manhattan, and he would basically give the history of the buildings all around, and he would add his own special twist. And there's the official flyer for that. And this came out in, did I put it? It was there a second ago.
Where can you watch it? Where can you see it?
The Cruise, you can see. I could not find it anywhere. This is one I know. If you can find it, you might be able to find it on YouTube. There are some. One I'm going to talk about later, I found on YouTube, and they changed the name of the film a little bit, so I was able to find it. But yeah, this one is you can't. I think you can probably rent. You can probably buy it on Amazon, but I think on DVD or VHS, which is crazy. I didn't even have a Blu-ray.
Yeah, there was a film. One of my films where, do you remember when, of course, back in the day when Netflix came out and it was a DVD in the mail service, and then they gradually switched over to streaming. It was both. It's still both. There's people that just do the DVD. And I remember at first it was like, God, there's so many more DVDs. The selection is so much better than the streaming. And I don't know how much that has changed. I know obviously Netflix spends a shit ton of $1 billion a year to acquire, content, create content. But I still think there's like some licensing and copyright where they don't have everything, and so I think we sort of forgot that. Like, we're like, oh, streaming is so much more convenient. Why am I going to deal with this getting a DVD in the mail and then I got to throw it back in the mail? I mean, how more convenient can it be? It's not that hard. You don't have to go to the store anymore, right?
Funny thing is, I was walking by my neighbor's house the other day, walking with my dog, and I saw one of the outside of their little flap. There was a DVD hanging out for the mail person to pick up. So they still do that. I think there's a fair amount of people who actually still do the DVD process.
Right. Well, partly it's technical. People don't have a good Wi-Fi in their house, and to accommodate the streaming. It seems weird that people don't have that now, but some people do. But there's a lot of content there that's just on the DVD that you can't get on the streaming.
Yeah, bonus footage and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember watching The Cruise. I don't know if we saw it together, but I mean, that movie is all about his personality. 100%, it's about his personality. He's like,
it's 70% his personality and 30% the city of New York. I mean, I felt like I got to learn things about New York that I never knew, and I'd been there many times. Yeah,
I mean the New Yorker is obviously a character in the way that he lovingly describes it. Watching it definitely makes you want to go there again, and visit. He had a show on Hulu. I don't know if you ever watched that show, where it was kind of similar. He would go to different cities and he would be the tour guide. He did one in San Francisco, some other cities. You can find that on Hulu. It's similar format. Him being a tour guide in different cities, and it's also pretty great.
Yeah. Well, we do have a special guest with us today, a film lover who has strong opinions about film, and I thought maybe we could bring in our special guest, and here he comes. It's Will.
Hello, gentlemen. How's it going?
Hello to you. All our guests must wear glasses. That's another rule.
Yeah. Well, actually, anyone our age is going to wear glasses.
Yeah, no glasses when I first met you guys, but now I'm right here.
That's right.
Shit happens.
But,
Will, what film you want to talk about with us today?
I want to talk about The Devil and Daniel Johnston. Have you guys both seen that one? I don't know if I wouldn't talk about it the other day if you'd actually seen it or not.
Yes.
Yes. Absolutely.
Good. Yeah, I was unaware. I just did a little bit of reading in the last couple of days, and I guess there's actually been another documentary made. I guess it's a short that came out maybe 5 years ago or something like that. And I can't imagine what they would have had to add. This is pretty comprehensive documentary. I think they pretty much cover his entire career, and in the decade since then, since he passed away last year, he's just kind of been doing more touring and stuff like that. So there's really, who knows? I don't think there's a whole lot more to add. It's a very complete film.
They could have added. Well, it was kind of nice that it wasn't about him dying at the end.
Right.
Like that was made when it was made, and not like today.
Yeah, absolutely. Colio, I was just talking to you the other day about, I was mentioning another thing about it, the Big Star documentary that came out maybe 5 or 6 years ago or something like that, was just the polar opposite of this film, because with Big Star, I think they had 5 minutes of footage of their entire career they had to stretch into a film, and with this one, Daniel was documenting himself just every second of the day, so it's just, there's no narration, there's just some interview footage, but mostly it's his own words that are just telling the whole story, and it's pretty compelling. I just watched it again the other day, and I sort of thought, if you weren't a fan, or if you needed to be persuaded to enjoy Daniel's work, that nothing else would do it. This is about as good as it's going to get to win you over.
How would you describe Daniel Johnston for people that have never heard of him?
Well, he's sort of the prince of the outsider art genre. People like Wesley Willis or the Shags or Wildman Fisher. Daniel spent his whole life suffering from mental illness, and you really can't separate that from his work. It is his work, so his songs are childlike and strange. He sings a lot about Casper the Friendly Ghost, he's but the thing is, I think the reason that you asked me to talk about Daniel is I got to play a couple of shows with him maybe 8 or 9 years ago or something like that. And the funny thing was that when I got kind of hired to do those shows, I wasn't really a fan. I just sort of thought, oh yeah, he's just a crazy guy singing songs, never really listened to it. But
not
really,
even after Walking the Cow,
Yeah, no, I never gave it the time, but that's just it. Like, after just spending a couple of days working with him, I was like, oh my God, this guy's kind of a genius. He's kind of the real deal. And it's the same thing. I think that's what I'm saying about with this film. You can't really, I don't think you could get through the whole thing without just kind of being won over that there's actually a lot of depth to his writing. Obviously a tortured character and all that, but a great writer on top of that. I think he really actually was amazing lyricist.
What was it like to share the stage with him?
Pretty weird. I don't know how many stories I want to get into, because I don't want to smirch his memory, but he's an interesting character. Like, one of the things that a lot of people who even saw him over and over didn't know was that anybody that played with him got to kind of pick which songs that they wanted to do, and he would have them all in a binder, like a kind of a plastic binder. And the reason for that binder was that it gave him structure. Like if he didn't have that binder there, he would literally do about a verse of a song and then go, okay, I'm done. Like, and move on. Like the whole show would be like 15 minutes long, you know. Like that was the only thing that kept him on track, you know. So it's a little bit of a nail biter playing with him, but really rewarding. It was a great experience.
Was he like I'm trying to remember in the footage of watching him on stage. I always think it's funny. And for those that don't know, Will is a very accomplished musician who's played with a bunch of different bands and done studio work on a bunch of albums. Like I remember seeing Michael Stipe. In fact, when he was on Saturday Night Live, REM, and they do 2 songs, right? And of course, he has his his music stand with the lyrics there. And I don't really see him looking at him that much. I think that's a fear thing of like, I have a fear that I might forget. He doesn't really look at it. And I wonder if Daniel Johnston was the same. Does he need to actually look at the lyrics? Or
I don't think he needs to look at the lyrics, but like I said, it's kind of a reminder for him that he has a job to do. Like he's really not present on a lot of the time, you know.
Yeah.
So. Or
probably a lot of that was the medication, maybe.
Yeah. It's tough because, like I said, he's such a talented writer and artist. I guess we should mention, you were saying earlier, for people who don't know Daniel, at least one thing about Daniel, which is the "Hi, how are you" frog that Kurt Cobain wore every day of his life.
Yeah, but his influence on so many artists, from throughout his whole career, really has been, amazing. I mean, just earlier this year, Built to Spill put out a tribute album to Daniel Johnston. They only songs from him. And
they're not the first. There's been several, both of, kind of various artists doing his work and of like just a single artist performing a bunch of his songs. There've been several. I can't think of too many of the names right now, but yeah, you're right. I'm very just absolutely influential, which is, I mean, again, about the film, if I had to say one thing that, it's kind of on the long side. I don't think it's quite 2 hours or something like that. And it feels like both 2 or 3 times I've seen it, it feels like they spend significantly less time on the music and like at least an hour or more of just his anguish and torture and mental stuff, and that's his life, so it's hard to say how you would reshape that, but I do feel like they could have given a little more screen time to just his importance as an artist.
Yeah, for me, that's what makes a documentary say separate. And while I have you here, I want to talk a little bit about concert films. It's a different thing. A concert film is typically just the concert, just the music. To me, I want to see more. I want to see behind the scenes. I want to get to know the artists and how they create work and what their process is. But to talk about concert films, to make a concert film special, it does have to have something, special about it, whether it's just because the artists are so amazing or you never got a chance to see them live and now you get to see a really well shot concert film. Obviously, we can talk about, Stop Making Sense or the Ziggy Stardust, whoever, D.A. Pennebaker film. I got to see, I was dating a woman who worked at Dolby and I got to see Rattle and Hum at Dolby. So that was kind of cool. Obviously you want to see it in a place that has great sound. That Aretha movie, that's pretty recent.
I did. We did watch the Amazing Grace. Basically, it was a concert film. It was basically they filmed her singing at the church. I forget where it was exactly, and with the backup with the actual church band, and it was in the 70s, and they never did anything. Sidney Pollack shot it, and he just didn't think he had anything that was worth anything, so it got shelved, and they cleaned it all up and put it together, and it's pretty amazing. It's so raw, and just, it's very different than this Live at Fillmore East, but it's a lot more gospel focused, and but definitely worth seeing. And I wonder if I wrote down where that one is. That is actually, you can probably, I wrote down Hoopla, but you might be able to get on Amazon Prime. Hoopla is if you have a library account, you get a lot of free movies through Hoopla. Yeah. We didn't make an icon for that, but that was another that wasn't on my list. But I did have there was a film. When I was researching what documentaries really impacted me, and I was just looking through the year, I would search like great documentaries from the 80s and 90s, and one I saw called Lacho Drum, which was all music. It's all music and no talking throughout the whole thing, but it basically follows different gypsy groups, families, areas all around the world, and just them gathering together and playing music. Like they'll show a kid and he'll be playing along in the audience, then that kid will wander off and start playing some instrument, and then it cuts to another person playing a similar instrument, and now you're in another country, and then that leads to another type of gypsy music in another part of the world, and it's impeccably shot. And I just watched it actually a couple hours ago again. That was the one I was able to find on YouTube, and it's just amazing. Just it's like a document of just culture that a lot of it might be lost, even though it was in the early 90s when it was shot. Who knows how much of that is still there?
Yeah, talk about culture. How about this film? Will, I don't know if you've seen this one.
No, I have not.
Yeah, it's pretty powerful. It's 10 years in the making, 85 years of the Apollo Theater in 90 minutes. How do you do that? Pretty tricky, but and of course I didn't write the director's name down. He's pretty great. I got to see this film at the Castro with the director there, and it was great.
When did that come out? When does I don't know this one.
End of last year. Wasn't it end of last year?
Yep, last year came out. Obviously, so much amazing footage to draw from there, and talking about and relating it to powerful now because of the Black struggle. And oh, that's cool. We got a little comment there.
Yeah. Got a comment from Sean Walsh. Loved Amazing Grace. Saw it at the Hollywood Theater in Portland.
Yeah, Aretha Franklin, Billie Holiday, to name a few, going back and all the way. James Brown obviously was a guy that played there a lot, but the performances were unbelievable. But also the stories behind what was going on in the country at the time, and Black artists, a lot of them didn't have a lot of venues to play. So the Apollo was pretty special. It's a very, it's a moving documentary because there's a lot of really moving performances. I also want to ask Will if you got to see this movie.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah, that would, to me, like, so that's the Tower Records documentary that Colin Hanks did, which gives you the history of Tower Records starting up in Sacramento, their first store, second store in San Francisco, Bay in Columbus, and then taking over the world, right. Sort of. Yeah. But all of us guys here are huge music heads. So before there was Amoeba, there was Tower Records, and they kind of had everything except used. Actually, that's maybe where they didn't jump on, but. To me, it was like people talk about bookstores. They love to wander around bookstores for hours. To me, that's record stores. And
well, they had a bookstore, Tower Books.
That's right.
Pretty great bookstore, actually. So
yeah, that's true. Yeah, but yeah, and so Tower, and I remember when I first went there we all went to UC Santa Cruz, and shout out to people that are in Santa Cruz right now, dealing with that fire. And I would go a few times over to the store in San Jose. Was the closest store. just to walk around. I actually remember I got this CD there, which was like an import only, I believe, this Mortal Coil Blood CD, like $20. And but that wasn't available anywhere else at any of the stores in Santa Cruz. So you would find cool stuff there. And then later they ended up there was listening stations that I used a lot. When I lived in LA, I would go to the Sunset store a lot. One time I went there and the guy said, "Oh, you just missed Morrissey. He was just in here." So a lot of musicians would go there, and they're in the documentary. Elton John was a big fan, and they love to go there.
Yeah.
And,
They
shop around.
showed him in the San Francisco one, actually. There's footage of him in that one.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, but it was really cool. Obviously, there was a lot of love going into that from Colin Hanks. And yeah, it's too bad. I guess it did survive. There's a store in Japan, I believe, that's maybe still going, as I recall.
Yeah, they talk about just the enormous expansion in the 80s of how in almost too much they were just spreading out, and they showed in Japan. They focused on Japan a lot, but it was in lots of countries.
Yeah,
and but I guess because in Japan they still purchase more physical media than they do here, even though the LP has made a resurgence in the past few years here, but and that hasn't really. I don't know if that has like kept places like Amoeba afloat. I think Amoeba just survives off their used catalog and events.
If they are going to survive, we'll see. I know they closed the LA store was the biggest store, and they were going to move anyway. I think they were moving somewhere else in LA, and they're still doing that. Hopefully it survives, because we need those record stores.
Yeah, it'll be, I think, a little while before, if they did close down, because I mean, over the last 10 years, maybe even 15 years, Amoeba Berkeley, the original Amoeba has undergone a lot of layoffs and rehirings and layoffs and rehiring. I mean, they keep doing whatever they have to do to stay open. So they're still staffed. So I mean, it'll be a little while. I think, who knows these days.
I think the commonality between Tower and Amoeba, and you can see it in the documentaries, that Tower was big on hiring like people that were super into music, not just someone that needed a job, but they knew what they were talking about. And they were kind of started by like this kind of hippie guy who wasn't like a big business guy, but he was just like, hey, show up on time, wear whatever you want, I don't care. Just show up, do a good job, and after work we're going to party. And definitely also knowledgeable staff, obviously at Amoeba. I know a lot of musicians that end up, getting working there, and seeing the staff picks are always pretty cool.
Well, Will, do you have anything more that you want to say about documentaries, music?
You boys got it. Go for it, boys.
All right. And when we're able to see live music again, we'll bring you back so you can tell us about any shows you may perform. Or if you're going to do a live stream at some point.
You never know. I'm getting pretty bored over here.
All right. Cool. Thanks, Will.
Thank you.
Thanks. Thought he would never leave. I'm just kidding. So, well, I could do actually, yeah. I mean, I'm going to skip that one. Let's leave the music world, and I'm going to play something and see if it. If this will play all right here. Okay. Oh, you went away though. Why did you go away? No, I don't want. Oh, we're both there now. Let's see. I'm going to play something here. Whoa.
How long is this clip? Like 10 minutes?
Yeah, it's almost.
What are we looking at?
This is Lacho Drome, what I was telling you about. So what will happen there is you'll follow this family right here as they go off, and they'll wander, and there'll be other music playing. So it's sort of in a weird way, the gypsy music version of Slacker, perhaps. But that was just I had mentioned Lacho Drome before, and I just wanted to give another. And here's their photo. Couldn't find a good higher res poster, but I just think it's amazing, and I just wanted to give that another shout out. But another one that I know we both really love is this Koyaanisqatsi, Crazy Life, Life in Turmoil, and I'm not going to play anything from that because I think the Philip Glass soundtrack might definitely be a copyright moment. Although the soundtrack is so amazing. I mean,
yeah,
it's another one where there's really no plot. It's all
just
like visuals, and there's like and the way the visuals are cut together, showing like extreme poverty and extreme like just wealth and like the opulence.
Koyaanisqatsi means life out of balance. It's a Hopi Indian tribe word. And so in the visuals, you get to see the imbalance of nature versus, industrialization of the world. And yeah, I mean, an introduction to that great director who this was turned out to be part of a trilogy.
Yeah.
And for me, you mentioned the music, but I love the Philip Glass music. He's done I don't know how many films now, like 20 films. The Hours is another one that he did great music for. His music is pretty how would you describe it? It's not, I don't want to use the word monotonous. It's repetitive, I guess. There's like repetitive lines that are used, and but I love his music. I got to see Koyaanisqatsi live with the Philip Glass players, which are all keyboard players. They were playing to the film live, which was pretty amazing.
Where was that happen?
That was at I think it was at the Herbst Theater or the War Memorial Theater, one of those theaters in downtown San Francisco. And I mean, there's nothing interesting about watching people noodle around on a keyboard, all dressed in black, so that they're not noticeable. You want to be looking at the film. And I think I fell asleep like 3 times just because it was so. And then I say that as a compliment because it's like so like meditative. It's just like the music and the imagery and. A really powerful movie. Great movie.
And well, for me, I first saw it when it came out in 1982, and it also happened to be the first time I ever took acid. So, this is when I was 16 and living. I was sophomore in high school, and somehow we drove from the Valley to the New Art Theater on Santa Monica Boulevard in LA. Go to see this movie. It's unbelievable. I felt like a religious experience. You didn't even need to take acid for it to feel like that. But it stayed with me ever since then. And I remember afterwards, like a couple doors down from the New Art was a palm reader. We went into their place and walk in. Okay, I want to get my palm read, but I couldn't stop laughing the entire time because I just couldn't get me out before doing my palm reading, so I never got my palm read.
What was it like? I'm sure you've seen it not on acid, but like comparing that to that first experience. Pretty wild.
Yeah, no, I mean it's great. Like it would to compare. I don't know if this is a good comparison. Another film I saw on acid was Back to the Future, which I still love the first one, but the second time I saw it did not match up to the original. whereas every time I see Koyaanisqatsi, it's amazing to me.
Yeah. I'm going to mention a film, and this falls into what I was saying earlier about Netflix going over to streaming. This was a film. This film is called "I Like Killing Flies," and it's about Kenny Shopson. That's Kenny Shopson there, who had a restaurant, still there in Greenwich Village, and you would describe him as eccentric, cranky, profane, uninhibited, eclectic. There are 900 different dishes on the menu.
Is he like the one who prepares everything? Or is it like
his family works there as well? So his two daughters, one of them who now runs the store, the restaurant. But it's like a funky space, and he has these rules like parties must be 4 or fewer. If he doesn't like your look, he'll tell you to leave. Like you'd look like a preppy.
So he's like the soup Nazi.
Exactly. He presaged the soup Nazi. And he's a philosopher. One of his lines is, "The first duty of everybody in life is to realize that they're a piece of shit." That's good words to live by. I also learned a great cooking lesson, which was in the film. He shows you how he separates eggs, the yolk from the white, which is he cracks the egg into his hand and lets the egg white slip through his fingers, and the yolk remains. I did this just a day ago. And he said, "Feels like a warm pussy." And that's just how he was. That's just the kind of guy he was, just like really spirited. And you can see this actually on YouTube. So you could watch it right now for free on YouTube. Or you could go get the actual DVD if you have that Netflix subscription. But it's really cool. It's just about like a interesting person who has pretty interesting philosophy of life. And this was it's one of my favorite documentaries of all time.
Yeah, I haven't seen that one. I remember seeing the name, but I don't know. Maybe it was the title that turned me off. I can't remember why. But I
was reading about his daughter put out a memoir a few years ago about her life and working with him and working in the restaurant. And so I ordered it. So that I'll be curious to read that.
Oh, we have a comment. Sean Walsh says, "I have the cookbook, which has tons of stories and photos of the store." And actually, it's Christy who's making that. I think it's called
Eat Me. Yeah, it is called Eat Me. Yeah, that's right.
Well, I expect next time I visit Portland to get a few of the meals from that book. So, Christy, I'll look through the book and maybe make some suggestions. I'm going to jump to a documentary that really, I don't know if you saw this with me or I saw this at the what was it called? The Berkeley, the big movie theater on University that's now a concert place. What was that called?
Oh, yeah. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, it was a gigantic theater. But anyways, I'm talking about Sick, the life and death of Bob Flanagan, super masochist. And this was Kirby Dick, who is a famous documentary. I don't know if this was his first documentary or not, but he later did This Is Not Rated, the whole thing about the ratings board and all that. And he's done a few other documentaries that, about like the abuse in the church and a lot of really, it gets really a lot of controversial topics. The Bob Flanagan one, basically he has cystic fibrosis, and he lived to be 43, which is really old, really, to have cystic fibrosis, and he's had it since he was a small kid. So there's a lot of archival footage, but how he deals with like just the, what his body's going through is he gets really into piercing. So he gets his nipples pierced, and it's just like the sort of having some sort of external pain sort of relieves the pain of his disease. And his girlfriend. I don't know if they're married in this, but I think they have another photo that has both of them in it. Where is that? Why can't I find it? Where is it? Anyways, yeah, I didn't put it in there. So his partner really supports him on this, and he goes and he helps other younger people who have cystic fibrosis kind of deal with their pain, and he like takes them to go get, you know, body piercings and tattoos and stuff. But it's such a, I don't know, it was just really powerful portrait of what suffering, of a person suffering, and how they kind of move past it and deal with their lives. So I highly recommend that. And then you can see that. What does it say? Oh, Sundance Now. That was the only place I could find it, where I didn't even know there was a Sundance Now. I don't know. I guess if you have the Sundance channel.
Right. I'll mention this movie that we got to see in the theater, which is all about before there was the first iteration of Dune that was not made by Jodorowsky. A documentary of him trying to make this movie, not getting the funding. He did extensive work, pre-production work. There's a lot of imagery. H.R. Geiger was doing some of the imagery.
Yep.
A friend of ours did some of the music for it, which was pretty cool. But just as interesting to see an artist trying to make something and the frustration and not having it get made. Really interesting story if you're interested, especially in how films get made, and in this case how they don't get made, but how much work goes into it even if it doesn't get made. And what's interesting, and I thought just to tie these two together, because this is another documentary that I believe we saw together. I remember when the David Lynch Dune movie came out, and he was like, haha, because that was such a failure. And David Lynch would agree that was a shitty movie. He didn't have final cut on. I think it's the only film he didn't have final cut on. And but there's a great documentary about David Lynch, which is called David Lynch: The Art of Life. It came out in 2016, and you can catch that on Amazon.
Yeah, I never even heard of that one.
Oh, you didn't see that one? Okay, because I saw it at the Roxy. And he talks about his history and how he started making films, and how he's now focusing on painting. And he's very, very prolific, hundreds and hundreds of paintings that all come from the subconscious or whatever's going on in his head. And it's funny because this is a good example.
I love that. Oops, not that. Yeah, the art piece. Yeah.
Yeah,
you can see the texture of it.
Yeah, and a lot of the imagery is very disturbing, but it's funny for him to talk about that. He had a very normal, fine childhood, so it doesn't come from there. It comes from somewhere, and maybe this is him, just like an outlet for him. But yeah, there's a lot of the movie of him painting and talking about painting and art and how he makes art, and it's pretty cool. I did remember a story. I don't know if I told you this story that I heard, which I thought was pretty great. He talks about early how he lived in Boston for a time, and this was pre-Eraserhead, when he was still in school, and he was roommates with Peter Wolf for a brief time, and Peter Wolf was like, "Oh, David, you got to see this guy, Bob Dylan. Me and my friends are going to go. He's playing down the street. He's fucking amazing." And so they go to see Bob Dylan. And then after the show, no David Lynch. And Peter comes back to the apartment. He's like, "David, what happened? I didn't see you after the show." He's like, "Oh, yeah, I left after 10 minutes. I wasn't really into it." And Peter Wolf got so enraged that you could walk out of a Bob Dylan show that he kicked him out of the apartment and told him he had to go live somewhere else.
I would have done the same thing. God damn it.
Yeah.
I'm gonna play something and see if you could
Name that tune.
name that movie. I think people will get this. Oh, they went. Hold on. I gotta share my screen again. God dang it. All right. Oh, I gotta hit play there.
Yeah. Any kids do that? It needs to be metal.
It looks like two fingers poking it, but
It's kind of like one. No, like this. No, like this. It's the two fingers up to represent the authority of the devil.
it would go, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, the great Penelope Spheres, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
I don't know why the volume was so low. But, yeah, Decline of Western Civilization #2, the Metal Years. I love all of them. I might like the punk rock one just as much because I saw it first, but I don't know. This one, it seemed even more inspired, and I thought I had a photo for it, but I can't find it. Oh wait, there's my photo. But yeah, and, Aerosmith and Ozzy, and there's just some of the. I remember what was the guy from Wasp? The lead singer from Wasp is just drinking Jack straight from the bottle and completely wasted. Just the excess of that hair metal, years, really. And Penelope just got them all to just be so honest and real, and it's like a cultural.
It's of a time.
Yeah, it captured it so well. It's like I don't think any other film captures that
The passion of the fans of fandom. Yeah. A lot of interviews in parking lots, as I recall, pre-show interview, when you're super psyched about seeing that band, and your whole life is kind of revolves around the band. Yeah, that's a good one. I'll mention, here's one that surprised me. It says it all right there. This one I wasn't really expecting everything. I think we all have an idea of Gilbert Gottfried, of just like the voice, like a fucking annoying voice. It's really loud and a persona. And this is like so much behind the scenes of just an everyday husband and father of two, and talking about his family. And he was a bit of a hoarder. Like every time he'd go stay in a hotel, which he does frequently, being a comic, being on the road, he would he would take all the little bottles of shampoo, and he had to take them home with him. And his wife, who's much tidier than he is, had to figure out a way to hide them under the bed or something.
Yeah, there's a whole section. Yeah, I saw that as well. And really, I highly recommend this one as well. Just because you see a whole different side. I mean, he is so reluctant to even have this documentary made of him during. And he's like, well, I don't know why you want to do this. I'm boring. I just go home. I just watch TV. But he, you kind of got. I guess you might have already thought he might have been Aspergery and maybe, but it really comes across in this, and just how he needs everything to be a very specific way. How he can't believe he met the woman that he ended up marrying and having kids, way late in life. And it's just really sweet to see him interact with his family and with his kids. And just because, and it's like, it shows in his face how he never thought he would have that kind of life. Right.
And I think maybe he has to have that balance, because on stage he's so profane and has like such an energy. He's really a pretty brave comedian. I mean, one of my favorite stories is about the Aristocrats and how, oh my God, I'm just like looking out the window, and it's like, because of the fires, the sunset is absolutely insane right now. Sorry about that. I think he was at It was a roast. It was like soon after 9/11, like literally like a few days after 9/11. And he was at a roast, and it was tricky. They were almost going to cancel the show because of 9/11. They decided to do it, and he came out and he did this joke called The Aristocrats, which is a joke that comedians tell themselves backstage, never ever on stage. It is absolutely filthy. There's different versions of it, and he just told it.
We could have picked that as a documentary.
Yeah, yeah.
That's
Yeah. Well, what's funny is I have a story about that documentary, which was there was a place that had open mic comedy. It was like a cafe, a restaurant, I think, but just like Wednesday night to get more people in, they would do open mic. And they had a special Aristocrats night. And this was when the movie had already come out, but it was just released on DVD. And if you came on stage and did a version of the Aristocrats joke, you would get the DVD and the CD. And I was like, fuck it, yeah, I'll do that. So I came up with the version of the joke where I use these cutouts of animals, and then I like hold them up, and it's like the cheetah, is fucking the elephant or whatever it is. And I went up there and I got to do my version of the Aristocrats.
wow.
Just so I get that DVD. But yeah.
Damn. I never knew that. Yes. Well, let's talk one more each.
Okay, go ahead.
I'm going to use for my last pick an iconic movie that my wife and I still make quotes from, and that is American Movie. And this, I guess, doesn't really fall into like hidden, because this one did really well, Grand Jury Prize, Sundance, and I got to remember his name, the guy on the left, Mark Borchardt. He and David Letterman like just loved each other, and so David Letterman would bring him on as a guest all the time, just because he was so droll. And but basically the idea of the movie, and I think I have another. There it is. There's a photo of these two guys. These two friends decide they're going to make a horror movie called Coven, but they called it Coven, or they called it Coven, yeah. Or whichever way, I might have it backwards. And anyways, they have no money. They have no real experience in making films. And they basically are just getting their friends and their uncles and their family to be part of this film. And Chris Smith, who was the filmmaker of this, who I think directed one of the things in your list.
Yeah, don't give it away.
Okay. Yeah, he just was there to capture the whole experience of them trying to make this film. All the things that could go wrong went wrong, and they were just so natural and funny and real. And it was borderline making fun of sort of like this white trash, maybe backwoodsy kind of people, but they were so lovable that it's just one of those documentaries that I can see a dozen times and it doesn't get old.
Yeah.
Highly recommended that. And where is that one? That says Amazon, but you have to rent.
Got it. Yeah. Well, it's funny. I have one quick story is that I just watched this documentary last night. I'm not going to really recommend it. It's not great, but they, back in, what was the year? 94. The studio had the option, Roger Corman's studio had the option for the Fantastic Four. So they made a movie of it. He wasn't the director. They cast it. They shot the whole film. Never released it. Never intended to release it. It was just a ploy in order to hold on to the rights, which they then sold to Fox or something like that. So everyone made a lot of money, and then they didn't want this film, this low budget Roger Corman version of the film to come out. And so it's just all the people that made the film. It's like, oh, we made this film. We put our heart and soul into it, and they were never intended to release it. Kind of funny story. But yeah, Chris Smith went on to direct this movie, which it's interesting because, making a movie about these two, young filmmakers, and obviously he brought that flavor to obviously a higher budget film. This was about the making of the Andy Kaufman movie when Jim Carrey sort of became Andy Kaufman. I mean, he did become Andy Kaufman,
Yeah.
almost literally. Like during the making of that film, he never broke character. He was Andy Kaufman, and he was what was the other guy? Tony Clifton.
Oh yeah, Tony
alter
Clifton.
ego. Yeah, so he
Yeah.
would also be Tony Clifton, and Milos Forman, who was the director of the Andy Kaufman movie Man on the Moon. Fucking drove him crazy what Jim Carrey was doing, but
Yeah.
but it's hilarious. And his family, he would go and he would be Andy Kaufman to his family, and it's like
Yeah.
they got to be with him another time.
Yeah, yes, wasn't his sister was really like
His
just
sister, yeah,
featured a lot in it.
yeah, really.
But yeah, that is an interesting contrast to go from to like a film about two documentary filmmakers who were the most approachable, like kind of easygoing guys, to Jim and Andy, like two people who were like are as about as difficult as you can probably get.
Yeah. Although, I mean, the artifice that, I mean, call it what you will, the method or whatever, when I think it was because Andy Kaufman had that spirit, he would go on stage and he would sort of become this character. Like when he was doing the wrestling thing, he would wrestle women, and he 100% committed to playing that character, taking audiences out of the theater to go across the street to get milk and cookies. I mean, just like these goofy, crazy things. So I felt like Jim Carrey, this is one of the things, like, you could not in the world imagine another actor in that movie besides Jim Carrey. But it's an amazing performance, and the documentary showing what it was like living with Jim Carrey and the making of that movie, and it's really, really, really interesting.
Yep. Yeah. No, it took me. I am one of those people. I did not love Man on the Moon, but I really loved this documentary.
Mm-hmm.
So
interesting. Yeah. You don't have to love the movie, I think, to love the documentary. You could say the same about Coven, the movie. You don't have to or Coven, excuse me.
Coven, that's right. All right. Well, we've rambled for over an hour, which is our usual. Thank you to the several people who've stayed and watched and made comments and given feedback. As you see on the bottom of the screen, to subscribe to our YouTube channel, just type in Stephen Colin Really Good Show. We need 100 subscribers in order to get the URL youtube.com/Stephen Colin Really Good Show. And I thought we can get that just by having the name, but apparently you have to show that enough people are watching you. So
yeah, if we don't get 100, we're going to kill a puppy. So
yeah,
there you go.
Yes, we will kill a puppy. So sign up, and also make comments, give feedback. Let us know what you'd like to see more of from us, less of. I mean, I'm sure you want to see more of that.
Hey-o, now.
No. I hope people did appreciate that I have George Burns, I Wish I Was 18 Again, in the background here, in case anyone was wondering. Each episode, I will promote 2 albums on sitting on my drums. So if anyone has an album that they would like me to promote, I can put that up there as well.
And the album of the 2 of them together is really powerful.
Aretha Franklin, I don't know if you know this, Aretha Franklin and George Burns, there is a sex
lovers.
Yeah.
And what I don't want to see in the comments, because there's a million documentaries, and we talked about, I think, 10, and we didn't talk about Werner Herzog, and we didn't talk about Errol Morris, and there's amazing documentaries that we didn't talk about that are out there, and trust me, we're aware of them.
Yes,
go watch every
Werner
Herzog movie for sure.
In fact,
won't go wrong.
I'm gonna say right now, the next 10 things I watch will be documentaries. And Karen's gonna have to watch them with me. All right, everyone, stay safe, stay away from the fires, and we'll see you 2 weeks from today. Adios.